And lawyers looking to sue the owners of the COVID-soaked Ruby Princess cruise ship say compensation could run into the millions. The ship is Australia's single biggest source of coronavirus, with more than 600 cases and several deaths linked to the Ruby Princess. 16 cases of coronavirus in New Zealand are also connected to the cruise ship that's now the subject of a criminal investigation and a potential lawsuit. The cruise under investigation left Sydney late on March 8th and arrived back one day earlier than scheduled on the 19th, during which time a global pandemic was declared. Shine Lawyers is spearheading the case, and Vicky Antzoulatos is the practice leader of Shine Lawyers' Class Actions Department. She says when sick passengers arrived in on the previous cruise, those on the next cruise weren't made aware the ship wasn't properly cleaned and their fate was predetermined.
Those questions involve, for example, why they let these people on the ship in the first place when they knew that on the previous cruise there were 160 people displaying symptoms consistent with COVID-19. With that knowledge in mind, it appears that they didn't warn the passengers coming on, and if they had warned them that there was a chance they could get sick, there's no way those passengers would have boarded that cruise ship. I mean, the other massive issues we see here are the failure to disclose by Carnival. They didn't, according to the accounts we've heard from passengers, at any stage disclose to the passengers that there were people on board the ship displaying flu-like symptoms consistent with coronavirus. And by doing that, they didn't give these people a chance to protect themselves, either by isolating themselves, wearing masks, or anything like that. So effectively, they got on the ship. You know, their fate was predetermined in a way because they weren't given any opportunity to protect themselves or to not go on that cruise.
There's a few things in there, Vicky. So let's start with the boarding of the cruise. You say there was about 160 cases on the cruise that was immediately prior to this one. Do you know if it was all the same crew crewing the boat?
No, we don't know that yet, but I'm assuming that will come out when the matter's investigated in Australia, and the government has recently announced that there will be a criminal investigation to the events that have occurred.
So once the cruise was underway, at what point did the ship's authorities become aware that some people were unwell?
We understand that several days into the cruise, some passengers reported to the ship's doctors that they were feeling unwell. So it was pretty early on in the cruise, according to the accounts of the passengers. So I think at that stage, people were told that if they did not feel well, they should report those symptoms, but they weren't at any stage told that there's a chance that they would contract the virus on board the ship, or any other steps that they should take to protect themselves.
So no link was made, as far as you know, between, say, flu-like symptoms that some passengers were suffering and COVID-19. The ship never publicly acknowledged that there was potentially a link here.
Not according to the accounts we've heard from passengers, no.
So when the boat finally got back to Sydney, there was some delays in the passengers coming off. What was known at that point when the passengers disembarked?
The passengers had no idea what was happening, according to the instructions that we've received from people that we've spoken to. They didn't know what was happening. They didn't know why things were delayed. And in the end, they were basically rushed off the ship, which was unusual for cruise ships because usually there's a procedure for disembarking. But they report that they were rushed off, put into buses and told to leave, basically. None of them had health checks. Nothing like that happened.
Did they know that a pandemic had been declared? Because that obviously happened while they were on the sea.
I can't be certain, but I assume they would have known because, I mean, they all, read the news and so on and so forth. But also, before they embarked on the cruise, the World Health Organization had declared COVID-19 to be a public health emergency. So, they would have been aware of the seriousness, but no one had told them not to get on the cruise in the first place because there was a serious risk to their health.
So, I mean, where is the line between personal responsibility then, given that information was already in the public domain about this virus? People chose to still get on the ship. Where does the buck stop here?
Well, in our view, the buck stops with the cruises, owners and operators. They knew what the situation was at the time. They knew that the World Health Organization had declared COVID-19 as a global health emergency. And let's not forget that their own other cruise ship, the Diamond Princess, had been quarantined off the Japanese coast for some time with many cases of coronavirus on board. So they would have known of the risks, and in our view, their duty was to inform oncoming passengers about the risks and give them the opportunity not to go on that cruise ship. In circumstances where they let them get on the cruise ship, then their duty was to inform the passengers of the risk that they may contract the virus on that ship. Another thing that should be said is about the fact that there were the sick people on the previous cruise. Hours later, they disembarked the passengers onto the new cruise. Now, given what we know about how long coronavirus lives on surfaces, it beggars belief that they had time to eradicate any virus that was on that ship. So in our view, there's many things that they ought to have done. The reports have come back that apparently they didn't do anything, but that will be further investigated in the investigations that have been ordered in Australia now.
Do you know the time between the first cruise disembarking and the second lot of passengers coming on board? How much time passed between that?
So the first cruise arrived in Sydney at 6 a.m. The passengers usually embark on the next cruise by sometime in the early afternoon. It was delayed. Apparently they got on around 6 and the cruise then left at midnight. That's the timing that we understand happened.
So it's your belief that they couldn't have properly cleaned the ship in the time that was allowed between the two cruises?
Yes, that's right.
Given that it took 6 weeks to clean the Diamond Princess, what lessons has Carnival learnt from that?
Well, we'll have to see as the events unfold. But as I said before, in our view, it beggars belief that they could have sanitised the ship in the 6 to 8 hours between disembarking one cruise and embarking the other. I mean, when you have an outbreak aboard the ship, there are national and international sanitising protocols that have to be followed to eradicate a virus on the ship. And they include using virucidal cleaners in the rooms, cleaning doorknobs, remotes, window sills, steam cleaning carpets, steam cleaning beds and mattresses and things like that. It really beggars belief that they did that in between the two cruises.
Is there a suggestion that infected crew members may have spread this to passengers through food preparation?
Look, that's a possibility. I mean, everything's on the cards, I guess, and all that will come out in the course of the investigations, including in any proceedings that we commence. We assume that we will get access to the ship's records, and those facts will come to the fore at that time.
Where is the ship at the moment?
The ship is docked at Port Kembla, which is at Wollongong in New South Wales, a regional area. And they have docked it there so that health professionals can have easier access to any sick crew on board at the moment.
And Vicky, how long do you think your investigation will take?
Well, we're hoping to get it moving very quickly. We've had previous experience investigating the same company over 8 successive cruises where there was an outbreak of norovirus on the same ship. So we think we're in a position to advance things very quickly. And we do think it's important that the company's held to account for the, misery and tragedy that, has been caused to many of its passengers and their families.
What would be a good outcome for your clients?
Well, nothing can ever, compensate people for the loss of their loved ones. But companies like Carnival understand the payment of big amounts of money, and that's what we would be hoping to achieve in any class action that's commenced. Compensation for the passengers and their loved ones they have lost in adequate sums to compensate them for what they've been through.
And that is Vicky Antzoulatos, who is with Shine Lawyers and is spearheading that potential class action against the Ruby Princess's owners.